The ice cracked like a gunshot, and 15 wolves went under. Elena Vance saw it happen from a mile away, the black shapes fleeing across Shadow Lake, the white surface splintering beneath them, the bodies disappearing into water so cold it would stop a heart in minutes. She'd been ice fishing since before dawn, huddled in her threadbare coat with numb fingers and an empty stomach. 5 years of exile had taught her to wake early, stay hidden, trust no one. The frozen lake was her territory now, not by right, but by default. No pack wanted this stretch of wilderness. Too remote. Too brutal. Too close to hunter territory. Which explained the explosions she'd heard 20 minutes ago. The howls of pain. The wolves now drowning a mile from where she sat. Don't move. Her survival instinct screamed it. She was packless. Vulnerable. If hunters were out there, she'd be dead before she could shift. And those wolves in the water, they weren't her people. Not anymore. But her wolf surged against her ribs, clawing to get out, and Elena was running before she made the conscious choice. She stripped off her coat as she ran, kicked away her boots. The shift took her mid-stride, bones cracking and reforming, skin splitting into silver-gray fur. The cold hit differently in wolf form, sharper, but more manageable. Her paws found purchase on the ice as she sprinted toward the chaos. She could see them now. Heads bobbing in the black water. Paws scraping uselessly at ice edges that kept breaking away. The youngest ones were already going still. Elena hit the water's edge and didn't let herself think. The first wolf she grabbed was small, a young omega, couldn't be more than 17. The girl's body was limp, her muzzle blue. Elena clamped her jaws around the scruff of her neck and hauled backward, dragging her onto solid ice. The omega coughed up water, convulsed, then went still again. Alive, but barely. Elena was already reaching for the next one. A warrior this time. Male, easily twice her size. She couldn't drag him by the scruff, so she shifted back to human form, naked, shaking, her skin already going numb, and hooked her hands under his front legs. She pulled until her shoulders screamed. The ice cut her knees. She didn't stop. 3 wolves out. 4. 5. Her claws were bleeding now, leaving red smears on the white ice. Hypothermia crept through her limbs like poison. She could feel her movements getting slower, clumsier. Her vision kept going gray at the edges. 6. 7. She recognized this one. Jenna Thorne, the Beta's sister. The woman who'd thrown the first stone during Elena's exile march, who'd screamed traitor with spit flying from her lips. Elena pulled her out anyway. 8. 9. 10. The water was getting quieter. Fewer splashes. Fewer struggles. She was losing them. Elena shifted back to wolf form and dove. The cold hit her like a physical blow, every nerve ending shrieking, her heart stuttering in her chest. She couldn't see anything in the black water, could only feel the brush of fur against her muzzle as she searched blindly. Her jaws closed around a leg and she kicked for the surface. 11. She dragged the body onto the ice before she looked at the face. Marcus Thorne. The Beta of Blackmoor Pack. The man who'd stood before the council 5 years ago with tears streaming down his handsome face, holding up evidence of her betrayal. I found these letters in her cabin, he'd said, voice breaking. I didn't want to believe it either. But she sold us out to hunters. Our own Luna's daughter. He'd been so convincing. So heartbroken. The whole pack had wept with him. And Elena had been dragged from her home at dawn, stripped of her pack bonds, and marched to the border while wolves she'd grown up with threw stones at her back. Now Marcus lay unconscious at her feet, his chest barely moving, ice crystals forming in his dark hair. Her wolf snarled. Let him drown. Elena's hands shook. Not from cold. She could do it. She could walk away right now, and no one would ever know. He'd be dead in minutes. Justice, 5 years late. But that wasn't who she was. That wasn't who her mother had raised her to be. Damn it. She grabbed his arm and dragged him to safety with the others. Then she turned back to the water, hating herself, hating him, hating the weakness in her chest that wouldn't let her become the monster they'd accused her of being. 12. 13. 14. The splashing had stopped. Elena crawled to the edge of the broken ice, her body shaking so hard she could barely control her movements. The water was going still, black and endless. She'd lost the last one. She'd been too slow, too weak, too. A hand broke the surface. Fingers scraped against the ice edge, pale and desperate. A face emerged, a man fighting to keep his head above water, gold eyes blazing with the effort of staying alive. Elena knew those eyes. She'd dreamed about them for 5 years. Nightmares where they stared at her with contempt. Fantasies where they softened with apology. Memories that wouldn't fade no matter how hard she tried to burn them out. Kael Blackmoor. Alpha King of the Blackmoor Pack. The most powerful wolf in 3 territories. The man who'd held her face in his hands on her 18th birthday and said, "You're my mate. I've waited my whole life for you." The same man who'd stood before his pack 3 months later and spoken the words that shattered her. "I, Kael Blackmoor, reject you, Elena Vance, as my mate and Luna. You are nothing to this pack." Now he was drowning. His gold eyes found hers across the ice. She watched recognition hit him, saw his expression shift from desperate to shocked. His lips moved, forming her name, but no sound came out. The cold was taking him. His fingers were losing their grip. Elena didn't move. "Let him die," her wolf whispered. "He destroyed us. He believed the lies. He threw us away like garbage and never looked back." She could still feel the phantom ache where their mate bond used to be. He'd severed it publicly, brutally, in front of everyone she'd ever loved. The pain had nearly killed her. Some nights, alone in her cabin, she'd wished it had. Kael's eyes never left hers. He wasn't begging. Wasn't pleading. He just looked at her like he was seeing a ghost, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. His fingers slipped. He went under. And Elena, stupid, broken, impossibly soft-hearted Elena, dove in after him. The water closed over her head like a grave. She couldn't see him. Couldn't feel anything except the cold crushing her chest, stealing her breath. Her lungs screamed for air. Her limbs were going numb. "He's too heavy. You'll both die." She didn't care. Her hand found fur, he'd shifted, trying to survive. She grabbed hold and kicked for the surface with everything she had left. They broke through together, gasping. Elena's vision was going dark. She couldn't feel her arms anymore. But she got her teeth around his scruff and pulled, dragged, crawled backward inch by impossible inch until they were both on solid ice. Kael wasn't breathing. Elena shifted to human form, her whole body convulsing with cold. She pressed her hands to his chest, still in wolf form, massive and gray and completely still. "No," she heard herself say. "No, no, no." She started compressions, throwing her weight into it, counting under her breath. Her hands were so numb she couldn't tell if she was even doing it right. "You don't get to die," she snarled at him. "You don't get to escape that easy. You hear me? You owe me, you bastard. You owe me 5 years. Nothing." She hit him harder. Shift back. Shift back and breathe, damn you." His body convulsed. Water poured from his muzzle. He coughed, choked, dragged in a rattling breath. Alive. Elena collapsed beside him, her cheek pressed to the ice. The cold had gone past painful into something almost peaceful. Her eyes wanted to close. Her heartbeat was slowing down. Around her, 14 wolves lay scattered on the frozen lake. Some were stirring. Most weren't. She needed to get them to shelter. Needed to get herself to shelter. But she couldn't move. Couldn't feel anything anymore. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was Kael's eyes opening, gold and confused and fixed on her face like she was the only thing in the world. Then everything went black. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. Elena woke to pain. Every inch of her body screamed, muscles she didn't know she had, joints that felt like they'd been filled with ground glass. Her fingers throbbed where the ice had torn them raw. Her lungs burned with each breath, still remembering the frozen water that had tried to kill her. But she was alive. She opened her eyes and saw rough wooden beams above her. Her cabin. Somehow, she'd made it back to her cabin. Memory came flooding back in pieces. The crack of ice. The wolves going under. Pulling them out one by one until her body stopped working. And then. Kael. Elena sat up too fast and nearly blacked out. Her vision swam, but she forced herself to focus, to take in the scene around her. Her tiny cabin was packed with bodies. Wolves lay everywhere, on her bed, her floor, pressed against her walls. Some were still in wolf form, others had shifted back to human. She counted them with growing disbelief. 14. 15. All of them breathing, steam rising from their mouths in the cold air. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. But how had she gotten them here? The last thing she remembered was collapsing on the ice beside Kael, the darkness swallowing her whole. Elena looked down at her hands. They were wrapped in strips of cloth, torn from her own blankets, by the look of it. Someone had bandaged her while she slept. A fire crackled in her small hearth. She hadn't lit a fire. You were out for 18 hours. The voice came from her left, low and rough. Elena's whole body went rigid. Kael Blackmoor sat against her wall, shirtless, a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. His dark hair was still damp, plastered to his forehead. His gold eyes watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Don't. The word came out harder than she intended. Don't talk to me. He didn't look away. Elena. I said don't. She tried to stand. Her legs buckled immediately, and she grabbed the edge of her cot to keep from hitting the floor. The movement sent pain shooting through her ribs. She'd cracked something during the rescue, probably when she'd been doing compressions on Kael's chest. On Kael's chest. She'd saved him. She'd actually saved the man who destroyed her life. What is wrong with you? You need to rest. Kael's voice again, closer now. He was trying to stand, trying to move toward her. You nearly died out there. The hypothermia alone. I know what nearly killed me. Elena forced herself upright through sheer stubbornness. I know exactly what I risked and who I risked it for. That doesn't mean I want to have a conversation about it. She looked around her cabin again, taking in the faces she recognized. The young Omega she'd pulled out first, Lily, she thought her name was, lay curled near the fire, breathing steadily. Jenna Thorne was propped against the far wall, unconscious but alive. And Marcus. Elena's gaze found him near the door, still in human form, still unconscious. Even in sleep, his face made her stomach turn. That handsome, trustworthy face that had lied so convincingly 5 years ago. She remembered something then. A flash of memory from the ice, fuzzy at the edges. Dragging Marcus toward her cabin. His eyes fluttering open, meeting hers. Fear. She'd seen fear in his expression. Not gratitude. Not confusion. Fear. Why would Marcus Thorne be afraid of her? You need to sit down. Kael was on his feet now, swaying slightly. He looked like death warmed over, pale, shaking, dark circles under his eyes. But he was moving toward her with that stubborn determination she remembered too well. Elena, please. Just let me. Let you what? She rounded on him, and something cracked open in her chest. 5 years of silence. 5 years of swallowing her rage, her grief, her questions. Let you explain? Let you apologize? Let you tell me how sorry you are that you threw me away like garbage? Yes. His voice was quiet. All of it. No. The word hung between them, sharp as broken glass. Elena made herself move. Her body protested every step, but she crossed to the small window and looked out at the gray morning light. Snow was falling again. The temperature was dropping. I'm going to check on the others, she said flatly. And then I'm going to make sure everyone can travel. And then you're going to take your pack and leave. Elena. You don't get to say my name like that. She turned to face him, and she hated the way her voice shook. You lost that right when you stood in front of 300 wolves and told them I was nothing. You don't get to look at me with those eyes and pretend we have something to talk about. Kael flinched. Actually flinched, like she'd hit him. Good. I saved your pack because someone had to, Elena continued. Because I watched them fall through the ice and I couldn't just let them die. But don't mistake that for forgiveness. Don't mistake that for anything except the fact that I'm not the monster you made me out to be. She moved through the cabin, checking pulses, adjusting blankets. Professional. Detached. She'd learned how to survive alone out here, how to treat wounds and set bones and keep herself alive when no one else would help her. Those skills served her now, let her focus on something other than the golden eyes tracking her every movement. The young Omega, Lily, stirred when Elena touched her forehead. Easy, Elena murmured. You're safe. You're warm. Just rest. Lily's eyes opened, unfocused at first, then sharpening with recognition. You're Elena Vance. Elena went still. My mother used to tell me stories about you. Lily's voice was weak, but there was something like wonder in it. Before your exile. She said you were the kindest person in the pack. She said the Luna's daughter used to bring medicine to the Omega quarters when people were sick. Elena's throat tightened. She'd forgotten that. Forgotten the girl she used to be, before everything went wrong. Your mother was mistaken, she said quietly. Go back to sleep. She moved on before Lily could respond. One by one, she checked the others, warriors and Omegas and pack members who'd once been her family. Some she recognized. Others must have joined after her exile. None of them were awake enough to cause problems yet. Except Marcus. When Elena crouched beside him, his eyes were open. She froze. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the woman he destroyed and the man who destroyed her. Elena. His voice was rough from the cold water, but he managed that same warm smile she remembered. The one that had made everyone trust him. You saved my life. I don't know how to thank. Don't. Something flickered behind his eyes. That same fear she'd seen on the ice, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. I understand, he said smoothly. Given our history, this must be difficult for you. But I want you to know, I've always regretted how things happened. The evidence was so convincing, and I said don't. She didn't know what made her say it. Maybe the way his voice had gone just slightly too smooth. Maybe the way his eyes kept darting toward Kael. Maybe just 5 years of instinct screaming that something about this man had never been right. When you can walk, Elena said slowly, you're going to leave with the others. And you're going to stay far away from me. Do you understand? Marcus's smile didn't waver. Of course. Whatever you need. She stood and walked away, but she could feel his gaze on her back. Watching. Calculating. Something is wrong with him. The thought came unbidden and wouldn't leave. She'd assumed his fear on the ice was about being vulnerable, about nearly dying. But now she wasn't sure. There was something underneath that charming mask. Something that made her wolf's hackles rise. She didn't have time to think about it. Her body was giving out, exhaustion pulling at her like a physical weight. She'd been running on nothing for almost 2 days now. Her reserves were gone. Elena made it to the door before her legs finally buckled. Elena. Kael was moving toward her, but she held up a hand. Don't touch me. She caught herself on the doorframe, breathing hard. 15 wolves in her tiny cabin. 15 wolves who needed food, water, warmth. 15 wolves she had to keep alive until they could travel. And him. The man she'd loved. The man who'd broken her. Watching her with those golden eyes like she was something precious he'd lost and just found again. I saved your pack, Elena said, and her voice came out barely above a whisper. I saved you. But not because I forgive you. Not because I've forgotten what you did to me. She forced herself to meet his eyes. I saved you because I'm not like you. Because when I saw people drowning, I couldn't walk away. That's the difference between us, Kael. That's always been the difference. I know. His voice cracked on the words. Elena, I know. And I need to tell you. No. She shook her head, and the movement made her vision swim. When you can walk, you leave. All of you. That's the only thing I need from you. She slid down the doorframe, her back against the rough wood. The edges of her vision were going dark again. The last thing she saw before consciousness slipped away was Kael's face, stricken, desperate, reaching for her even as her eyes closed. The last thing she heard was his voice, barely a whisper. I never stopped looking for the truth. And then there was nothing but darkness. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. The smell of cooking meat pulled Elena out of the darkness. She came awake slowly, her body fighting consciousness like it was something to be avoided. Everything hurt, a deep, bone-level ache that made her want to sink back into sleep and never surface again. But the smell was wrong. She didn't have meat. Hadn't had fresh meat in weeks. Elena forced her eyes open. She was in her bed, buried under every blanket she owned plus a few she didn't recognize. The cabin was warm, warmer than it had been in months. And crouched by her fireplace, tending to a pot of something that smelled incredible, was Kael Blackmoor. He must have sensed her waking, because he turned to look at her before she could decide whether to pretend she was still unconscious. His gold eyes met hers across the small room, and something shifted in his expression. You're awake. Elena tried to sit up. Her body immediately rebelled, muscles screaming, head spinning, stomach lurching. She got halfway upright before collapsing back against the thin pillow. Don't. Kael was on his feet, moving toward her. You've been out for 18 hours. Severe hypothermia. Your body needs time to recover. Don't tell me what my body needs. The words came out weaker than she intended. She hated that. Hated being vulnerable in front of him, of all people. Kael stopped a few feet from the bed. He looked better than he had before she'd passed out, still pale, still exhausted, but steadier on his feet. Someone had found him a shirt, though it was too small and stretched tight across his shoulders. You saved 15 wolves, he said quietly. You saved me. After everything I did to you. Elena stared at the ceiling. I didn't do it for you. I know. She heard him move closer, felt the weight of his gaze on her face. She refused to look at him. Elena, I need to tell you. No. She cut him off, and this time her voice came out stronger. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your explanations. Your pack will recover, and you'll leave. That's the only conversation we're having. Silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. Elena could feel him wanting to push, wanting to say whatever it was that sat on the tip of his tongue. But he didn't. After a long moment, she heard him move away, back toward the fire. The broth is ready, he said. You need to eat. I don't need anything from you. Your body is recovering from near-death hypothermia. You need calories and fluids, or you'll go into shock. His voice had shifted into something almost clinical. Alpha giving orders. I'm not asking. Elena wanted to argue. But her stomach chose that moment to cramp painfully, reminding her that she'd been running on empty for days even before the rescue. She didn't have the energy to fight about food. Fine. She managed to sit up on the second try, though it took everything she had. Kael brought her a chipped mug filled with broth, rabbit, from the smell of it. One of the warriors must have hunted. Elena took the mug without touching his fingers. The first sip hit her stomach like liquid gold, warmth spreading through her chest. She drank in silence, using the time to survey her cabin. The wolves had rearranged themselves while she slept. The most injured were clustered near the fire, wrapped in blankets and furs. The warriors had positioned themselves near the door and windows, standing guard, she realized. Some of them were watching her with expressions she couldn't read. Shame, maybe. Or confusion. The woman they'd been told was a traitor had just saved their lives. That had to be messing with their heads. Good. Let them be confused. Let them wonder if maybe, just maybe, they'd been wrong about her. Jenna Thorne was awake now, sitting against the far wall with her arms wrapped around her knees. When Elena's gaze found her, Jenna looked away quickly. Couldn't even meet her eyes. You threw the first stone, Elena thought. You called me a traitor and spat in my face. Now you can't even look at me. She should feel satisfied. She didn't. She just felt tired. Elena? A small voice from her left. Elena turned to find Lily, the young Omega, hovering a few feet away. The girl looked better than she had on the ice, color in her cheeks, steadiness in her stance, but there was something fragile about her. Something that reminded Elena of herself at that age. You should be resting, Elena said. I know. I just... Lily twisted her hands together. I wanted to thank you. For pulling me out. The healer said I was the first one you saved. That you came for me before anyone else. You were closest to the edge. Still. Lily stepped closer, her dark eyes earnest. My mother used to tell me stories about you. Before your exile. She said you used to bring medicine to the Omega quarters when people were sick. She said you were the kindest person in the pack. Elena's chest tightened. She remembered those visits. Remembered sneaking herbs from her mother's stores because the Omegas couldn't afford healers. Remembered the way the children had smiled at her, the way the elderly wolves had blessed her. That girl felt like a stranger now. Someone who died on the exile march and never come back. Your mother was mistaken, Elena said quietly. I'm not kind. I just didn't want to watch people die. Lily opened her mouth to respond, but a smooth voice cut her off. And thank the moon for that. Marcus Thorne approached from across the cabin, his charming smile firmly in place. He moved carefully, still recovering from his own brush with death, but there was an ease to him that set Elena's teeth on edge. Like nearly drowning hadn't affected him at all. Elena. He stopped a respectful distance away, his hands spread in a gesture of gratitude. I don't have words for what you did out there. Saving the entire pack, risking your own life, after everything. After everything you did to me, you mean? The words came out flat and cold. Marcus's smile flickered, but he recovered quickly. I understand your anger. Truly, I do. The trial was. He shook his head, the picture of regret. I've thought about it so many times over the years. Wondered if I missed something, if the evidence was somehow. The evidence you found. Yes. His eyes met hers, and they were perfect. Warm. Sincere. The eyes of a man burdened by guilt. I've never forgiven myself for bringing it forward. But I had to. The safety of the pack. Save it. Elena set down her empty mug and forced herself to stand. Her legs shook, but they held. She was done lying in bed while Marcus Thorne played the penitent. Your pack is recovering, she said. Another day, maybe two, and you'll be strong enough to travel. I suggest you start planning your route back to Blackmoor territory. Actually. Marcus glanced toward Kael, who who had gone very still by the fire. "I've been discussing that with some of the warriors. This area isn't safe, we're too close to hunter territory. The pack needs to move as soon as possible. Tonight, if we can manage it." "Tonight?" Lily looked alarmed. "But half the wolves can barely walk. We'll carry the injured. It's not ideal, but staying here puts everyone at risk. Including Elena." Marcus turned that warm smile back on her. "I'm sure she'd prefer to have her home back." Elena said nothing. Something about his reasoning felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on what. Across the room, Kael spoke for the first time since Marcus had approached. "We're not moving tonight." Marcus's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Alpha, with respect. The pack isn't strong enough. We wait until tomorrow at minimum." Their eyes met, and Elena saw something pass between them. Something she couldn't read. Marcus's jaw flexed, but he nodded smoothly. "Of course. You know best." He moved away, stopping to check on other wolves, playing the concerned beta. Elena watched him go, that wrongness still itching at the back of her mind. Kael was watching Marcus too. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. Calculating. "What are you thinking?" Elena wanted to ask. But she wasn't going to start conversations with him. Not now. Not ever. She spent the rest of the day doing what needed to be done, checking wounds, rationing food, making sure the fire stayed fed. The wolves gave her space, most of them. A few tried to thank her. She cut them off before they could finish. By nightfall, exhaustion had sunk its claws back into her. But her mind wouldn't quiet down. Too many bodies in her space. Too many eyes watching her. And Marcus's voice, smooth as silk, still echoing in her ears. "We need to leave before she starts talking." "Wait." Elena went still. That wasn't a memory from today. That was. She was on her feet before she consciously decided to move, her wolf's hearing straining toward the back of the cabin where a low conversation was happening. She crept closer, keeping to the shadows, her heart pounding in her chest. Marcus's voice, barely above a whisper, asking questions about the trial lately. Going through the old records. If she fills his head with lies. She saved the whole pack. One of the warriors, sounding uncertain. "Maybe we should just." "Just what?" "Let her twist the Alpha's mind against us." Marcus's voice went cold in a way Elena had never heard before. "We need to leave before she has a chance to talk to him alone. Before she starts spinning her version of events." "But Beta, if she's telling the truth." "She's not. Sharp. Final. She's a traitor." The evidence was clear. And if Kael starts believing otherwise because some exile batted her eyes at him, everything we've built falls apart. Do you understand? Silence. Then, yes, Beta. Elena's blood had turned to ice in her veins. Kael had been asking questions. About her trial. Going through old records. Why? Why would he do that after 5 years? I never stopped looking for the truth. His words from before she'd passed out. She'd thought she'd imagined them. Before she could process any of it, she stepped on a loose floorboard. The creak was impossibly loud in the quiet cabin. The warrior's head snapped toward her, eyes widening. And then Marcus turned, slow and deliberate, to face her. His charming mask was still in place. But his eyes were different now. Flat. Cold. The eyes of a predator who'd just spotted prey. Elena. His voice was silk over steel. How much did you hear? If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. Enough. Elena held her ground, though every instinct screamed at her to run. The cabin was dark, lit only by the dying embers in the fireplace. Most of the wolves were asleep, exhausted from their brush with death. And Kael, Kael was outside, running perimeter. She was alone with Marcus and 2 warriors who were now flanking him, blocking her path to the door. Marcus laughed softly. It wasn't a pleasant sound. You always were too curious, he said. Just like your mother. Elena's heart stopped. The world went silent around her. She could hear her own pulse pounding in her ears, could feel the blood draining from her face. Her mother. He'd said her mother. What did you say? Marcus tilted his head, studying her like she was something mildly interesting. A bug under glass. Oh, Elena. You really never figured it out, did you? All these years, and you never once wondered why your mother had her accident right after she started asking questions about my movements? No. She found out what I was, Marcus continued, his voice going flat. Cold. The charming mask had fallen away completely now, revealing something ugly underneath. A week before she died, she confronted me. Said she had proof I was selling pack information to hunters. Threatened to tell Kael's father. Elena couldn't breathe. Her mother's death, they'd said it was an accident. A fall during a storm, a head injury, nothing anyone could have prevented. Elena had been 16, drowning in grief, barely able to function. You killed her. The words came out broken. You murdered my mother. I removed a threat. Marcus shrugged. And then I spent 2 years waiting, making sure no one suspected anything. When you started sniffing around your mother's old notes, asking the same questions she'd asked, I knew I had to act fast. You were 16 and stupid with grief, so easy to frame. A few forged letters, some planted evidence, tears at the trial. He smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Elena had ever seen. I'd been running Blackmoor from behind Kael's back for years. The hunters, the territory deals, the accidents that kept removing anyone who got too close to the truth. Kael thinks he's alpha, but he's just a puppet. A useful face to keep the pack in line. Elena was shaking. Rage and grief tangled in her chest, so intense she could barely see straight. Her mother. Her life. Everything she'd lost, it was all because of him. You destroyed me. Her voice cracked. You took everything from me. And you should have stayed destroyed. Marcus stepped closer, and the 2 warriors moved with him. But now you've gone and saved us all, and the Alpha is looking at you like you're something precious. Like maybe he made a mistake 5 years ago. I can't have that, Elena. I can't have him asking more questions. He already knows. She said it without thinking, grasping at any weapon she could find. He's been investigating. Going through old records. He's going to find out what you did. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Fear? Anger? Both? Then I'll have to move faster than I planned. He glanced at the warriors. Take her. They moved. Elena had spent 5 years alone in the wilderness. 5 years hunting her own food, fighting off rogues, surviving things that would have killed a weaker wolf. She wasn't the helpless Omega they'd exiled anymore. The first warrior grabbed her arm. She drove her elbow into his throat, felt cartilage crunch, and twisted away before he could recover. He went down choking. The second warrior was faster, more prepared. He caught her around the waist and slammed her against the wall. Her head cracked against the wood, stars exploding behind her eyes. She fought anyway. Clawed at his face, kicked at his knees, threw her weight sideways. But he was bigger, stronger, and her body was still weak from the hypothermia. He pinned her arms behind her back and forced her to her knees. Marcus approached slowly, pulling a blade from his belt. The metal gleamed in the firelight. I'll make it look like you attacked us, he said calmly. Tried to finish what you started 5 years ago. The traitor, come back to murder the pack that exiled her. Tragic, really. Kael will be devastated. Elena spat at his feet. He'll know. He'll figure it out. He'll grieve. And then he'll move on, and I'll keep running things the way I always have. Marcus crouched in front of her, the blade inches from her throat. Any last words? I'll be sure to pass them along. Elena met his eyes. She wasn't going to beg. Wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. My mother didn't beg either, she said quietly. Did she? Something ugly twisted in Marcus's expression. No. She fought. Right up until the end. Good. A roar shook the cabin. The sound was enormous, primal and furious, rattling the walls and making the dying fire flare. Every sleeping wolf jerked awake. The warrior holding Elena flinched, his grip loosening for just a second. Kael Blackmoor stood in the doorway. His eyes were blazing gold, pure alpha power radiating off him in waves. Elena had seen him angry before, 5 years ago, when he'd rejected her. There had been cold fury in every word. But this was different. This was volcanic. Stand down. The command hit like a physical force. The warrior released Elena immediately, stumbling backward. Even Marcus flinched, though he recovered quickly. Alpha. His voice shifted, the charming mask sliding back into place like it had never been gone. Thank the moon you're here. She attacked us, woke up raving about revenge, tried to kill Jensen. We were just defending ourselves. Kael didn't move. Didn't blink. I heard everything. 3 words. Quiet. Deadly. Marcus's face went pale. I was outside the window, Kael continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I heard every word you said. About Elena's mother. About the frame job. About running my pack behind my back for years. The cabin had gone deathly silent. Every wolf was awake now, watching with wide eyes. Elena saw understanding dawn on some faces, horror on others. Jenna Thorne had pressed herself against the wall, staring at her brother like she'd never seen him before. Kael. Marcus held up his hands, the blade still clutched in one of them. Whatever you think you heard, I can explain. You can explain murdering my Luna? Framing my mate? Selling my pack to hunters? My mate. Elena's heart clenched at the words, but she pushed the feeling aside. Now wasn't the time. Marcus's expression shifted. The mask cracked, fell away, and what was left underneath was something broken. Something unhinged. Well, he said softly. That's unfortunate. He moved faster than anyone expected. 1 second he was standing in front of Elena, the next he was across the room with his arm wrapped around Lily's throat. The young Omega screamed, a short, terrified sound that cut off as Marcus pressed the blade to her skin. Nobody moves, he snarled. Or the girl dies. Kael froze mid-step. The wolves who'd been rising to their feet went still. Elena's mind raced. 15 wolves in the cabin, but Marcus had positioned himself with his back to the wall. No one could get behind him. No clean takedown. And Lily was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling. Let her go. Kael's voice was carefully controlled, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands had curled into fists. This is between us, Marcus. She has nothing to do with it. She has everything to do with it. She's the only thing keeping you from tearing my throat out. Marcus laughed, high and unstable. Here's what's going to happen. Elena is going to walk out that door with me. She's the only leverage I have now, the Alpha's precious mate, returned from exile. You'll let us leave, and once I'm far enough away, I'll release the girl. No. Kael took a step forward. I'm not letting you take her. Then the Omega dies. Marcus pressed the blade harder against Lily's throat, and a thin line of blood appeared. Lily whimpered. Your choice, Alpha. Elena looked at Lily. At the terror in her eyes, the trembling of her small body. This girl who'd thanked her for saving her life. Whose mother had told her stories about kindness. She thought about her own mother. About how she'd fought until the end. I can fight too. Fine. The word dropped into the silence like a stone. Kael's head snapped toward her. Elena, no. Let her go, Elena said, keeping her eyes on Marcus. Release Lily, and I'll come with you willingly. No fighting. No tricks. Marcus studied her, looking for the trap. Why would you do that? Because I'm not going to watch a 17-year-old girl die for me. Elena stood slowly, her body screaming in protest. I've already lost everything once. I survived. I'll survive this too. Elena. Kael's voice was raw. Don't do this. She didn't look at him. Couldn't look at him, or she'd lose her nerve. Do we have a deal? She asked Marcus. A slow smile spread across his face. We have a deal. He shoved Lily forward. The girl stumbled, caught herself, and ran toward the other wolves. One of the female warriors grabbed her, pulling her close. Marcus gestured with the blade. Come here. Slowly. Elena walked toward him. Each step felt like walking toward her own execution. Maybe it was. Marcus had already killed her mother, already destroyed her life once. There was nothing stopping him from finishing the job once they were away from witnesses. But Lily was safe. That had to count for something. She was 3 feet away when Kael spoke again. Marcus. His voice had changed. Gone cold and deadly quiet. If you hurt her, if you touch a single hair on her head, I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. There won't be a territory, a pack, or a hole deep enough to hide you. I will find you, and I will make your death last for days. Do you understand me? Marcus's smile flickered. For just a second, Elena saw fear in his eyes. Then he grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the door. Start running, Alpha, he called over his shoulder. By the time you catch up, she'll already be dead. The cold night air hit Elena's face as they stepped outside. And then they were gone. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. The frozen night swallowed them whole. Marcus dragged Elena through the snow, his grip on her arm bruising. She stumbled over roots and rocks, her bare feet going numb within minutes. He hadn't given her time to grab shoes, hadn't given her time to grab anything. But he'd come prepared. When they were 100 yards from the cabin, he stopped and pulled something from inside his coat. Rope. Elena's stomach dropped when she caught the smell, wolfsbane, woven into the fibers. Hands, Marcus ordered. She considered fighting. Running. But the wolfsbane would weaken her the moment it touched her skin, and Marcus still had the blade. She held out her wrists. The rope burned where it touched her. She bit down on her tongue to keep from crying out as he wound it tight, the wolfsbane seeping into her bloodstream through the abraded skin. Her wolf howled in protest, thrashing against the poison, but there was nothing either of them could do. Good girl. Marcus smiled. Now walk. Behind them, Elena heard Kael's voice roaring through the night. Not pursuit, commands. Holding the pack back. Marcus had made his threat clear, follow, and she dies. He's letting me go. The thought hurt more than it should have. What did she expect? Kael had rejected her once already. Why would he risk his pack for her now? Because he came to the window. Because he heard everything. Because he called you his mate. She shoved the thoughts away. Hope was dangerous. Hope would get her killed. Marcus set a brutal pace through the forest, dragging her over frozen ground and through snowdrifts that came up to her knees. The cold was devastating, her body was still recovering from the hypothermia, and now she was back out in the elements with no coat, no shoes, no protection. But the wolfsbane was worse. It crept through her veins like liquid fire, making her muscles weak and her thoughts fuzzy. Every few minutes, she had to fight to stay conscious. You're wondering how, Marcus said as he pulled her over a fallen log. How I got away with it for so long. Elena didn't answer. But Marcus didn't need encouragement. He was unraveling now, 15 years of secrets spilling out of him like poison from a wound. 15 years, he continued. That's how long I've been selling pack secrets to hunters. Territory maps. Patrol schedules. Weaknesses in our defenses. They paid well, and I was careful. So careful. He yanked her forward, and she nearly fell. Your mother was the first one to get suspicious. She noticed a shipment of wolfsbane coming through pack territory, my shipment, for my buyers. She started asking questions. Started digging. Elena's chest constricted. Mom. I tried to warn her off. Told her she was imagining things. But she was stubborn. Marcus's voice went flat. Just like you. A week later, I arranged her accident. Made it look like she slipped during a storm. No one questioned it. Why would they? I was the grieving friend, the supportive beta, the one who held her daughter while she cried. Elena remembered that. Remembered Marcus's arms around her at the funeral, his voice murmuring condolences. She'd thought he was kind. She'd trusted him. Bile rose in her throat. You were 16 and drowning in grief, Marcus continued. So easy to manipulate. When you started going through your mother's things, finding her notes, asking the same questions she'd asked, I knew I had to act fast. The forged letters, the planted evidence, you made it almost too easy. One trial, and you were gone. Exiled. Problem solved. Until now, Elena said through gritted teeth. Marcus laughed. Until now. You were supposed to die in that hunter raid, you know. That's why I led the pack across Shadow Lake. I knew the ice was weak. I'd arranged the ambush with my buyers. The whole pack was supposed to go down, and I was supposed to slip away in the chaos. Start fresh somewhere else. Elena's blood ran cold. You tried to kill your own pack. They were getting too comfortable. Kael was asking too many questions. It was time to cut my losses. He shrugged. But then you showed up. You weren't supposed to be at that lake. You weren't supposed to save anyone. You ruined everything just by being alive. His grip tightened on her arm, fingers digging into bruises. But we can still salvage this. The hunters want you, an exiled wolf, once accused of being a traitor. You're valuable to them. They'll pay well for someone like you. And in exchange, they'll give me safe passage out of wolf territory. Everyone wins. Except me. Elena said nothing. She was watching, waiting, looking for any opportunity. The wolfsbane made it hard to think, but she forced herself to stay focused. She wasn't the broken girl she'd been 5 years ago. She'd survived alone. Hunted her own food. Fought off rogues who tried to claim her territory. She could survive this too. They walked for what felt like hours. The forest grew denser, darker, the trees pressing in on all sides. Elena's feet were bleeding now, leaving red smears in the snow. Her wrists had gone raw under the wolfsbane ropes. But she kept moving. Kept watching. Finally, they reached a clearing. An old hunting cabin sat in the center, half collapsed and stinking of decay. Hunter scent was everywhere, old, but unmistakable. This was a rendezvous point. A place where wolves came to die. Marcus dragged her inside and threw her against the far wall. She hit hard, her shoulder screaming in protest. Stay there. He pulled a length of chain from a hook on the wall, more wolfsbane, she realized with despair, and secured her wrists above her head. The poison burned fresh, and her wolf whimpered somewhere deep inside her. I'm going to signal my contacts, Marcus said. They should be close. When they arrive, you'll go with them quietly. If you fight, I'll tell them to make it hurt. He was gone before she could respond. The cabin door slammed shut, leaving her in darkness. For a long moment, Elena just hung there. The wolfsbane was making it hard to think. Hard to feel anything except the burning in her wrists and the cold seeping into her bones. She was going to die here. After everything, after surviving exile, surviving the lake, surviving Marcus's revelation, she was going to die in a rotting cabin, sold to hunters like livestock. No. The word rose up from somewhere deep. Fierce. Defiant. No. I didn't survive 5 years of hell just to die like this. Elena let herself break. Just for a moment. Let the grief and rage flow through her, for her mother, for the life she'd lost, for the mate who'd thrown her away. She let herself feel all of it, every wound and scar and broken piece. Then she got to work on the chains. The wolfsbane made her weak, but the chains were old. Rusted. She twisted her wrists, ignoring the way the metal bit into her skin, working at the weakest link. Blood ran down her arms, making her grip slippery. Come on. Come on. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. She couldn't tell anymore. The cold was getting worse, and the wolfsbane was dragging her toward unconsciousness. But she kept working. Kept twisting. Kept fighting. A link gave way. Elena gasped, nearly sobbing with relief. She was still chained, but the loop had loosened enough that she could work one hand free. Just a little more. Engines. She heard them in the distance, growing closer. Multiple vehicles. Hunters. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't free yet. She wasn't. Howls. Faint, but unmistakable. Wolves. Coming from the opposite direction. The Blackmoor pack. The cabin door burst open, and Marcus stumbled inside. His face was pale, panicked, all pretense of control gone. They tracked us, he gasped. Your alpha actually came for you. Elena smiled. Her wrists were bloody, her body was failing, and hunters were minutes away from killing her. But she smiled. He's not my alpha. Marcus snarled and started toward her, but he was too late. The cabin door exploded inward. Wood splintered. Cold air rushed in. Elena braced herself for Kael, for golden eyes and righteous fury. But it wasn't Kael who stepped through the wreckage. It was a hunter. Tall. Broad. A shotgun in his hands, already raised and aimed at Elena's chest. Nobody moves, he said. The wolf dies first. 2 more hunters crowded in behind him. Marcus had frozen mid-step, his face a mask of calculation. Elena could see him weighing his options: fight, flee, negotiate. Wait, Marcus said, raising his hands. I'm the one who called you. She's the package. There's no need for. Shut up. The lead hunter didn't take his eyes off Elena. We've been watching from the ridge. Saw the whole pack mobilizing. You led wolves straight to our position, you stupid mutt. I didn't, I couldn't have known they'd follow. The hunter's finger tightened on the trigger. The deal's off. We're cleaning up and getting out. Starting with her. Elena looked down the barrel of the shotgun. Saw her death written in cold metal. Outside, the howls were getting closer. So close now. But not close enough. I'm sorry, Mom, she thought. I tried. The hunter's lips curled into a smile. And then the night exploded into chaos. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 6. 6 hunters. 6 guns. And Elena still chained to the wall with wolfsbane burning through her veins. The lead hunter kept his shotgun trained on her chest while his men fanned out through the cabin. They moved with military precision, professionals, not the ragtag groups that usually hunted wolves. These were the real deal. The kind of hunters that made packs disappear. Marcus was talking fast, his voice pitched high with desperation. Listen to me. I can still deliver. The girl is valuable, she's a rare bloodline. Her mother was. The hunter pistol whipped him. Marcus went down hard, blood streaming from a gash above his eye. He tried to rise, but one of the other hunters planted a boot on his chest. I know what her mother was, the lead hunter said. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Why do you think we wanted her in the first place? Elena's blood went cold. They know about my bloodline. She'd never understood what made her mother special. As a child, she'd known her mother was different, had seen the way pack members came to her when they needed the truth, the way she could settle disputes with a single question and a long look. But her mother had never explained it. Had always said she'd tell Elena when she was older. Then she died, and Elena had buried those questions along with her grief. Your mother was descended from the old wolves, the hunter continued, turning to face Elena. A nearly extinct line. Wolves with abilities that modern packs have forgotten even exist. He stepped closer, studying her like she was a specimen in a lab. She could sense lies. Could feel the truth in a person's soul, just by looking at them. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was for us? For our operations? Elena's mind was racing. Her mother's gift, she remembered now. Remembered the way her mother would touch her face and say, "Tell me the truth, little one," and Elena would feel compelled to confess every mischief, every small deception. That's why you killed her, Elena whispered. That's why Marcus. Marcus was paid to eliminate the bloodline, the hunter confirmed. Your mother first, then you. But you were young. Undeveloped. The gift hadn't manifested yet. We thought exile would break you. Kill you eventually. He smiled, cold and thin. But here you are. 5 years in the wilderness, and you're still breathing. That makes you valuable. We can study you. Figure out how the gift works. Maybe even find a way to use it for ourselves. Something stirred inside Elena. Deep. Ancient. Like a door that had been locked for years suddenly cracking open. She remembered her mother's hands on her face. Remembered her voice, "The truth is a river, Elena. Let it flow through you." She'd thought it was just a saying. A piece of motherly wisdom. But now, hanging in chains with death staring her in the face, she understood. It was an instruction. Outside, the howls were deafening now. Close. So close. The lead hunter's expression flickered with annoyance. Get ready, he told his men. We'll deal with the wolves first, then. The window exploded. Glass and wood sprayed across the cabin as a massive gray wolf came through in a shower of debris. Kael. His eyes blazed molten gold, alpha power radiating off him in waves that made the air itself feel heavy. He hit the nearest hunter before the man could fire, jaws closing around his throat. Blood sprayed across the wall. Chaos erupted. More wolves poured through the doorway, warriors, fighters, the Blackmoor pack in full fury. Gunfire cracked through the air. A wolf went down screaming. A hunter fell with his face torn off. Elena twisted against her chains, pulling with everything she had. The wolfsbane burned, but something else was burning hotter now, that ancient power, rising up from somewhere deep inside her. The rusty link gave way. She fell to the floor, wrists bleeding, head spinning. But she was free. A hunter swung his rifle toward her. Elena moved on instinct, ducked under the barrel, drove her shoulder into his gut, felt him double over. She grabbed his knife from his belt and buried it in his neck before she could think about what she was doing. Blood on her hands. Hot and wet. She didn't stop. The power was flooding through her now, and she understood what her mother had meant. She could feel the room, not just see it, but feel it. The hunter's lies clung to them like oil slicks, dark and slippery. The wolves burned with fierce, clean truth. And Marcus. She sensed him before she saw him. A knot of deception so thick it was almost black, slipping toward the back door, trying to escape in the chaos. No. Elena fought her way across the cabin. A hunter grabbed her arm, she broke his wrist and kept moving. A wolf, Jenna Thorne, she realized, crashed into another hunter beside her, giving her an opening. She burst through the back door into the frozen night. Marcus was running. Human form, sprinting toward the tree line. He must have heard her behind him because he shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, body expanding, brown fur erupting over his skin. Elena shifted too. The power came with her. It wrapped around her wolf form like armor, ancient and unstoppable. She was faster than she'd ever been. Stronger. When she caught Marcus at the edge of the trees, she hit him like a freight train. They rolled through the snow, snarling and snapping. Marcus was a trained warrior, a beta who'd held his position for over a decade. But Elena had something he didn't. The truth. She could feel his every move before he made it. Could sense the deception in each feint, the lies in each attack. He couldn't fool her. Couldn't trick her. For the first time in her life, she saw him exactly as he was. A coward. A murderer. A man made of nothing but lies. They broke apart, circling each other in the bloody snow. Marcus shifted back to human form, breathing hard. "You don't know what you're doing," he panted. "That power, it'll burn you up. Your mother couldn't control it either. That's why she was so easy to kill." Elena shifted too. She stood naked in the snow, blood running down her arms, and she felt nothing but cold fury. "Tell me about her death." Marcus laughed. "You want the details? Fine." She begged. "Got down on her knees and begged me to spare you. That's the only reason you survived, because your pathetic mother traded her life for yours." The gift surged. And Elena knew, with absolute certainty, that he was lying. Every word. Every syllable. Lies, 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 thick and black and rotten. Her mother hadn't begged. Her mother had fought. Had fought to protect her daughter, to protect the pack, to protect the truth. She died on her feet, defiant to the end. Just like Elena would have. "Liar," Elena said softly. She shifted faster than Marcus could react. Her jaws found his throat before he could raise his hands to defend himself. She tore it out. Marcus collapsed in the snow, blood pumping from the wound, eyes wide with shock. He tried to speak, but there was nothing left, just gurgling and twitching and the slow fade of life from his eyes. Elena stood over him and watched him die. She felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just a cold, empty space where her rage had been. It was over. Finally over. Behind her, the sounds of battle were fading. The gunfire had stopped. The snarls were dying down. She should go back. Should check on the pack, see who'd survived. But her legs wouldn't move. The power was draining out of her now, leaving her shaky and exhausted. The wolfsbane was still in her system, still burning. And the cold, she'd forgotten how cold she was. A howl rose up behind her. Victorious. They'd won. Elena turned and walked back toward the cabin. The scene was carnage. Dead hunters everywhere. A few wolves down too, being tended by their packmates. Blood stained the snow in wide, dark pools. And in the middle of it all. No. Kael was on the ground. Elena ran. Her feet barely touched the snow. She skidded to her knees beside him, her hands finding his chest, finding the wound. Silver. A silver bullet, lodged inches from his heart. The flesh around it was black and smoking, the poison spreading through his veins. No, 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 she pressed her hands to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. But there was so much blood. Too much. You don't get to die. You hear me? You still owe me answers. You still owe me 5 years. Kael's eyes fluttered open. Gold, but fading. He looked up at her, and something like peace crossed his face. Elena. His voice was barely a whisper. You're alive. Of course I'm alive. I'm too stubborn to die. Tears were streaming down her face. When had she started crying? Now stay with me. The healer's will. Can't. His hand covered hers, weak and trembling. Silver. Too close to the heart. Don't you dare. She was sobbing now. Don't you dare give up. I didn't save your miserable life twice just to watch you die. He smiled. That same smile she remembered from 5 years ago, when he'd held her face in his hands and told her she was his mate. Before everything went wrong. I'm sorry, he breathed. I should have believed you. Should have fought for you. I was a coward. You were, she agreed, tears falling onto his chest. And you're going to spend the rest of your life making it up to me. So don't you dare close your eyes. But his eyes were already closing. His hand went limp over hers. Kael. She shook him. Kael. Nothing. Kael. The howl that tore from her throat wasn't human. It was grief and rage and 5 years of loneliness, all of it pouring out into the frozen night. And somewhere deep inside her, the ancient power stirred again. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 7. Help. Somebody help me. Elena's screams tore through the night. The pack surrounded them within seconds, warriors and omegas pressing close, their faces shifting from triumph to horror as they saw their alpha bleeding out in the snow. Silver, someone said. It's Silver. Too close to the heart. A warrior named Jensen crouched beside her, his face grim. We can't extract it in the field. The poison's already spreading. Then we take him back to the pack house. He won't survive the journey. Jensen's voice was flat. Final. I'm sorry. He has minutes. Maybe less. No. Something inside Elena rebelled against the words. She hadn't survived 5 years of exile for this. Hadn't dragged 15 wolves from a frozen lake, hadn't killed Marcus with her bare hands, hadn't faced her mother's murderers just to watch her mate die in the snow. Her mate. She still thought of him that way. Even after everything. The bond he'd severed, she could feel it now, faint and damaged but still there. A ghost of what it had been. A thread that had never quite snapped, no matter how hard he'd tried to cut it. There has to be something. Her voice came out broken. Some way to save him. The wolves exchanged glances. Hopeless. Resigned. They'd already given up. But then an old woman pushed through the crowd. Gray hair, weathered face, hands gnarled with age. Elena recognized her, Lyra, the pack's oldest omega. She'd served as healer for 3 generations of Blackmoor alphas. Lyra crouched beside Kael's body, her eyes assessing. Then she looked at Elena, and something flickered in her expression. There's one way, she said slowly. The old way. But it requires the mate bond to be intact. Elena's heart clenched. The bond is broken. He rejected me. Damaged. Not broken. Myra's voice was gentle but firm. A true mate bond can never be fully severed. But to use it for healing, you would have to restore it. Accept him as your mate again. Open yourself to the connection completely. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Accept him. After everything he'd done. After the rejection, the exile, the 5 years of loneliness and pain. She would have to open herself to that bond again, risk feeling it shatter a second time. She looked down at Kael's face. Pale. Still. The blood had stopped pumping from his wound, which meant his heart was barely beating. She remembered him standing before the pack, speaking the words that destroyed her. I reject you, Elena Vance, as my mate and Luna. You are nothing to this pack. She remembered the cold in his eyes. The way he'd turned away without looking back. But she also remembered what Marcus had said in the cabin, before everything went wrong. The Alpha's been asking questions about the trial lately. He'd been looking for the truth. For 5 years, while she'd been surviving in exile, he'd been searching for proof of her innocence. He hadn't given up on her. He'd just been too late. I never stopped looking for the truth. His last words before she'd passed out. She'd thought she'd imagined them. If I do this, Elena said slowly, if I restore the bond, what happens? You'll be connected to him completely. His pain will be your pain. His wounds will be your wounds. Mira paused. The silver poisoning is killing him. To save him, you would have to draw it into yourself. Filter it through your own blood. That would kill her, Jensen protested. She's already weak from the wolfsbane. The silver would. No. Mira was looking at Elena with something like awe. She's old blood. I saw what she did tonight, the power she carries. Her bloodline was made for this. The ancient wolves could purify poison, heal wounds, pull their mates back from the edge of death. Elena stared at the old woman. My mother never told me any of this. Your mother died before she could teach you. But the power is there. I can see it in you. Mira reached out and touched Elena's face with papery fingers. The question is whether you're willing to use it. Whether you're willing to risk everything for a man who hurt you. Elena looked at Kael again. His breathing had gone shallow. His lips were turning blue. She thought about all the reasons she should let him die. The rejection. The exile. The stones thrown at her back as she walked away from everything she'd ever known. 5 years of cold nights and empty silence and wondering if anyone would ever love her again. She thought about the way he'd looked at her when she pulled him from the lake. The way his voice had broken when he'd apologized. The way he'd roared for the pack to hold back, terrified that Marcus would hurt her. She thought about what it would mean to live without him. To carry this ghost of a bond for the rest of her life, always feeling the empty space where he should have been. I'm going to regret this. Elena leaned down and pressed her forehead to his. His skin was cold. Colder than the snow beneath them. She could feel the silver poisoning spreading through him, could sense his heart struggling to beat. Elena Vance, she whispered, and her voice cracked on the words, accept you, Kael Blackmoor, as my mate. The bond ignited. It hit her like a lightning strike, fierce and true and overwhelming. Not the fragile thing from before, tentative and new. This was something ancient. Something that had been waiting 5 years to be set free. She felt his heartbeat like her own. Felt his pain, his weakness, the silver burning through his veins. She felt his love, buried under guilt and grief and self-hatred, but still there. Still burning. He'd never stopped loving her. Come back to me, she pushed through the bond. Come back so I can yell at you properly. Then she reached for the power inside her. It rose up like a wave, the gift her mother had left her, the ancient bloodline that had almost been erased from the world. She grabbed hold of it and pushed it through the bond, into Kael, wrapping it around the silver poisoning like a fist. And she pulled. The pain was instantaneous. Blinding. It felt like someone had poured molten metal into her veins. She screamed, couldn't help it, as the silver began to flow through the bond, out of Kael and into her. Elena. Someone was shouting her name. Jensen, maybe. Or one of the other wolves. Elena, stop. You're killing yourself. She didn't stop. The silver was acid in her blood. Her vision went white. She could feel her heart stuttering, her lungs seizing, her body trying to reject the poison. But she could also feel Kael. Feel his heartbeat growing stronger. Feel the death retreating from his veins. She held on. Minutes that felt like hours. The world narrowed down to nothing but pain and determination and the fragile thread of the mate bond keeping them both alive. Don't you dare die on me, she snarled through the connection. I didn't go through all this just to lose you. Elena. His voice in her mind, weak but present. Elena, what are you doing? Saving your miserable life. Again. Now shut up and let me work. She pulled the last of the silver toward herself. Felt it moving through the bond, leaving his body, entering hers. The poison collected in her chest like a ball of fire, burning, burning. And then it moved. She felt it traveling up, 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 through her blood, through her flesh, toward the surface. Her chest split open. Not literally, but it felt that way. The silver forced its way out through the wound in Kael's chest, a misshapen bullet emerging from flesh that wasn't her own. It fell onto the snow, smoking and hissing. Black and twisted and finally gone. Kael gasped. His eyes flew open, gold, bright, alive. He sucked in a breath, then another, his chest heaving as air flooded lungs that had been seconds from stopping. His gaze found hers. Gold met brown. He opened his mouth to speak. Elena slapped him. The crack echoed through the silent clearing. Kael's head snapped to the side, a red handprint blooming on his cheek. Then she grabbed his face and kissed him. It was a terrible kiss. She was crying and shaking and still half poisoned. He was weak and gasping and barely conscious. Their teeth clicked together. Neither of them cared. "Don't ever," Elena gasped against his lips, "do that to me again." Elena. But she was already falling. The last thing she heard before the darkness took her was Kael screaming her name. She woke to warmth. For a moment, Elena just lay there, confused. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been truly warm. Her cabin was always cold, her blankets always thin. But this was soft sheets and thick furs and heat radiating from somewhere beside her. She opened her eyes. She was in a bedroom she didn't recognize. Large, well-furnished, with heavy curtains blocking out the daylight. The Blackmoor pack house. She'd never been inside it before, had been exiled before she'd ever seen Kael's private quarters. And sitting beside the bed, holding her hand, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Kael. His face was haggard, dark circles under his eyes, stubble covering his jaw. But his eyes were alert. Watching her. When he saw that she was awake, something cracked in his expression. Elena. Her name in his voice. It still did something to her. She hated that. How long? Her voice came out like sandpaper. 3 days. He leaned forward, still holding her hand. The healers said you nearly died. The silver poisoning, you pulled it all into yourself. It should have killed you. Apparently I'm stubborn. She tried to sit up, winced, and settled for pulling her hand away from his. I saved your life. Twice now. I know. That doesn't mean I've forgiven you. Kael nodded. He didn't argue, didn't try to justify himself. Just accepted her words with a quiet pain that made something twist in her chest. I know, he said again. But I need to tell you everything, Elena. About why I rejected you. About what really happened 5 years ago. The council, the pressure, the threats, all of it. He met her eyes, and she saw it there, the desperation, the hope, the fear. The same emotions she'd felt for 5 years, reflected back at her. And then you can decide, he continued quietly, if you ever want to see me again. Elena stared at him for a long moment. The mate bond hummed between them, stronger than ever before. She could feel his emotions through it, guilt, regret, love, terror. He was laying himself bare, waiting for her judgment. She pushed herself upright. Her body ached, but her mind was clear. Talk. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 8. Kael told her everything. He sat beside her bed in the fading afternoon light, and he broke himself open. No excuses. No justifications. Just the truth, raw and ugly. The council came to me the night before the trial, he said, his voice hollow. They had Marcus's evidence, the letters, the testimony, the supposed proof of your betrayal. I didn't believe it. Not for a second. Elena watched his face. Through the bond, she could feel his shame like a physical weight. But they threatened civil war. Half the council was already questioning my judgment for choosing an Omega mate. They said if I protected a traitor, the pack would fracture. The allied packs would withdraw their support. Everything my father built would crumble. He looked down at his hands. They gave me a choice. Reject you publicly and let the trial proceed, or watch the pack tear itself apart defending a woman they believed had betrayed them. So you chose the pack. Elena's voice was flat. I chose wrong. His hands clenched into fists. I told myself it was noble. That I was sacrificing my own happiness for the greater good. That I would investigate quietly, find the truth, and bring you home. But you didn't find the truth. Marcus was thorough. Kael's jaw tightened. Every lead I followed went cold. Every trail was buried. The council members who pushed hardest for your exile, 2 of them are dead now. Hunters killed them in the raid. I found out later they were working with Marcus. They'd been feeding information to hunters for years. Elena absorbed this. 2 council members. Traitors within the pack's own leadership. And Marcus at the center of it all, pulling strings like a puppet master. You vanished, Kael continued. After the exile, I sent wolves to find you. To make sure you were safe, at least. But you disappeared completely. I thought, his voice cracked. I thought you might be dead. For 5 years, I didn't know if you were alive or dead, and it was my fault. Silence stretched between them. Elena stared at the ceiling, processing everything she'd just heard. The council's threats. The impossible choice. The years of searching that led nowhere. You broke me, Kael. The words came out quieter than she intended. She felt him flinch through the bond. Not just the rejection, I could have survived that. I'm strong enough to survive losing a mate. She turned her head to look at him. But you didn't believe me. When you stood in front of the pack and spoke those words, I saw doubt in your eyes. For just a second, you wondered if I was capable of that betrayal. Kael's face crumpled. Elena. That's what I couldn't forgive. Not the rejection. The doubt. He didn't deny it. Didn't try to explain it away. He just sat there, accepting her judgment, waiting for whatever came next. But, Elena said slowly, you were looking for the truth. You never stopped, even when every lead went cold. And when it mattered, when Marcus had me at that cabin, you came for me. I would have burned down the world to find you. I know. She reached out and touched his face. His stubble was rough against her palm. I felt it. Through the bond. When I was drawing out the silver, I felt everything you'd been carrying for 5 years. The guilt. The grief. The hope that wouldn't die no matter how hard you tried to kill it. His hand came up to cover hers. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, she agreed. You don't. But I'm not the same girl you exiled, Kael. I'm not soft anymore. I'm not naive. And I've spent 5 years learning that holding on to anger is just another way of staying in prison. She sat up slowly, ignoring the ache in her muscles. I'm not saying I forgive you. Not yet. But I'm willing to let you try to earn it. The great hall of the Blackmoor pack house was filled to capacity. Elena had never seen so many wolves in one place. They stood in rows, hundreds of them, their eyes fixed on the raised platform where Kael waited. The air hummed with tension and anticipation. Word had spread quickly through the territory. Marcus's treachery. The hunter's conspiracy. The exiled Omega who had saved 15 wolves from a frozen lake and then killed the Beta who had framed her. And the old blood. Everyone was whispering about the old blood. Elena stood at the back of the hall, watching the crowd. She recognized faces, wolves who had thrown stones at her during the exile march, wolves who had called her traitor, wolves who hadn't lifted a finger to help her when she needed them most. Some of them couldn't meet her eyes. Others stared at her with something like awe. Lily found her in the crowd. The young Omega slipped through the packed bodies until she was standing at Elena's side. "Are you nervous?" Lily whispered. "No." Elena was surprised to find it was true. "I'm done being nervous." Kael's voice rang out across the hall. 5 years ago, I failed my mate and my Luna." The whispers died. Every eye turned to the Alpha. "I let fear guide my actions. I let politics override my judgment. I rejected an innocent woman based on lies manufactured by a traitor who had infiltrated the heart of this pack." He paused, and his gaze found Elena across the crowded room. "That ends now." The wolves parted as Elena walked forward. She moved through them like water through stone, her head high, her shoulders back. The power she'd awakened in the hunter's cabin stirred inside her, not demanding, just present. A reminder of what she was capable of. She climbed the steps to the platform and stood beside Kael. He turned to face her formally, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Elena Vance. Daughter of Luna Sarah. Last of the old blood." He held out his hand. "Will you accept your place as Luna of Blackmoor?" The room held its breath. Elena looked out at the sea of faces. She saw Jenna Thorne near the front, her expression a mixture of shame and hope. She saw the warriors who had helped rescue her from the hunter's cabin. She saw the Omegas clustered in the back, watching with wide eyes. She looked at Lily, who was clutching her hands together, practically vibrating with anticipation. She looked at Kael, who was offering her everything. "No." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kael's face didn't change, but through the bond, Elena felt his devastation hit like a wave. She let the silence stretch for a moment. Then she stepped closer to him. "I won't accept my place like it's being handed to me," she said. "I'm not the girl who was exiled 5 years ago. That girl would have been grateful for scraps. Would have thanked you for giving back what was always supposed to be hers." Her voice grew stronger, carrying across the hall. "I earned my survival. I spent 5 years alone in the wilderness, hunting my own food, fighting off rogues, building a life out of nothing. And when I saw 15 wolves drowning in that lake, I didn't save them because I wanted something in return. I saved them because I chose to." She reached out and took Kael's hand. "I don't want to be given the Luna position, Kael. I'm claiming it. This pack is mine because I bled for it. You are mine because I chose you, not because some bond told me to." Something sparked in his eyes. Through the bond, she felt his devastation transforming into something else. Pride. Admiration. Love. "I'm not accepting your offer," Elena said. "I'm telling you how it's going to be." A slow smile spread across Kael's face, the first real smile she'd ever seen from him. It transformed his features, made him look younger, lighter. "Then tell me, Luna," he said. "How is it going to be?" Elena turned to face the pack. Her pack now. Her voice carried old blood authority, power that made wolves straighten instinctively. "Blackmoor pack will change. No more exiling wolves without irrefutable proof. No more councils operating in shadows. No more treating Omegas as lesser." She found Jenna Thorne in the crowd. "You will earn my forgiveness through action, not words. All of you." Her gaze swept across the wolves who had hurt her. "And you will never make another wolf feel as worthless as you made me feel." She turned back to Kael. "And you? You will spend the rest of your life making this up to me. You'll start by rebuilding my mother's memorial, the one that was torn down after my exile." "Done," he said immediately. "You'll name our first daughter after her." His breath caught. "Our first daughter? I didn't survive all this just to be alone, Kael." She let herself lean into him, just slightly. "I want a family. I want a pack. I want everything that was taken from me." Through the bond, she felt his hope ignite like a bonfire. "But I swear to the moon," she added, "if you ever doubt me again, I'll make that frozen lake look like a warm bath." "Understood." His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Completely understood. 1 month later, Elena stood at the newly rebuilt memorial to her mother. The stone was white marble, carved with her mother's name and the symbol of the old blood, a wolf howling at a crescent moon. It overlooked Shadow Lake, which had thawed now. The ice was gone, replaced by dark water that reflected the pale spring sky. Elena traced her fingers over the carved letters. Sarah Vance. Beloved Luna. Keeper of truth. I did it, Mom, she whispered. I survived. And I made them pay for what they did to you. Footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. She felt Kael through the bond before she heard him. His love wrapped around her like a warm blanket. His arms slid around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. She let herself relax into him. The pack is asking when the Luna ceremony will be, he murmured against her hair. When I'm ready. Of course. He kissed her temple. There's something else. The healers confirmed. I know. She placed her hand over her stomach, over the small flutter of life growing inside her. I've known for a week. She felt his joy explode through the bond, pure, overwhelming, almost too big to contain. His arms tightened around her, and she felt the sob he was trying to hold back. Elena. Sarah, she said softly. If it's a girl. If it's a boy. She paused. We'll figure it out. His laugh was watery. We'll figure it out. They stood there together, looking out over the lake where everything had changed. 15 wolves. Frozen water. A choice to save the man who had destroyed her. She didn't regret it. She wasn't the exiled Omega who survived out of spite anymore. She wasn't the broken girl who was framed and abandoned. She was Elena Blackmoor. Luna. Old blood. Mother. And she was exactly where she belonged. I know you enjoyed this video. Kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below and share this video to family and friends. The end.